Fix the generator, and I'll kiss you right now." In front of everyone, the CEO's words rang across the factory floor, dripping with arrogance. Her team burst into laughter, their voices echoing against cold concrete walls. And at the center of it all stood a single dad, oil-stained overalls, tired eyes, hands trembling not from fear, but from anger. He said nothing. He simply walked toward the machine. And what happened next silenced every mocking voice in the room. The rain poured hard that morning, washing the city in silver streaks. Inside the sprawling steel plant, tension crackled louder than the storm outside. The CEO, Veronica Steele, was conducting one of her infamous walkthroughs, moments where she flaunted her authority, belittling workers to remind them. Who was in charge? Her designer heels clicked sharply against the wet floor. A crowd of managers followed, their nervous chuckles echoing her every smirk. Then she saw him, Ethan Cole, a single father of two, known on the floor for working double shifts to make ends meet. His overalls were stained, his boots worn, but his back was always straight. Quiet, dependable, but invisible to people like Veronica. That day, however, fate pushed him into her spotlight. The generator had failed, the heartbeat of the plant. Lights flickered, machines stilled, productivity halted. Workers whispered anxiously, managers fumbled excuses. Veronica's eyes scanned the floor until they landed on Ethan. "You?" Her voice sliced through the silence. "Can you fix this?" Ethan hesitated. He had done repairs before, but this generator wasn't simple. Still, dozens of eyes were on him, and he needed the overtime pay. He nodded that single quotes S when Veronica smirked. "Tell you what," she said, turning to her entourage. "If this single dad here can fix the generator, I'll kiss him right now in front of all of you." Laughter erupted. Some clapped. Others whistled mockingly. Ethan's face flushed red, not from flattery, but humiliation. She had turned his skill, his livelihood, into a joke, but Ethan stayed silent. He walked past her, past the laughter, and knelt beside the dead machine. The room quieted as his hands worked. Grease smeared across his arms, sparks flared dangerously close. He traced wires, checked circuits, and tightened bolts with precision born not of training manuals, but of necessity. Years of fixing broken things, cars, heaters, washing machines, for his kids had sharpened his instincts. The managers whispered nervously. Veronica leaned on a railing, arms crossed, smirk still painted on her lips. Minutes passed. Sweat dripped down Ethan's brow. His mind raced. Failure would mean more than mockery. It could mean termination, another strike. Against him in a world already stacked high with bills and responsibility. But then, a flicker, the generator coughed. Lights buzzed back to life. The machine roared, steady and strong. Gasps filled the room. Workers cheered. The managers blinked in disbelief. Ethan wiped his hands on his overalls and stood tall. He said nothing, because the thunder of the machine said everything. All eyes turned to Veronica. Her smirk faltered. She had expected failure, a spectacle. Instead, she had been outplayed by the very man she mocked. One of her executives whispered, half joking, "Well, aren't you going to keep your word?" The laughter that followed wasn't cruel anymore. It was sharp, turning against her. Veronica's cheeks flushed. She adjusted her jacket, glaring at Ethan as if daring him to demand payment for her wager. But Ethan simply shook his head. "I don't need anything from you," he said quietly, voice steady. Respect would have been enough. Words cut deeper than any kiss could have done in the days that followed. Whispers spread through the plant. Workers retold the story of the single dad who humbled the CEO, the kiss she promised but never gave, the dignity he kept while she lost hers, and something shifted. Managers who once overlooked Ethan began seeking his input. Workers rallied around him, treating him not as a laborer, but as a leader. Even Veronica, humiliated but calculating, realized she had underestimated him. Weeks later, During a board meeting, she stunned her team by promoting Ethan, not out of kindness, but out of recognition that the plant needed his grit, his problem-solving, his unshakable calm. When she announced it publicly, Ethan stood at the podium, his 2 children watching from the crowd. His voice carried not arrogance, but quiet strength. People can mock you, they can test you, but respect. Respect is something you earn, not something you gamble. The factory erupted in applause. Veronica clapped too, her smile tight. She had tried to break him in front of her team. Instead, he had built himself into something greater. A man no kiss, no humiliation, and no CEO could diminish. This story reminds us, real power isn't in public humiliation or cheap dares. It's in the hands of those who rise above, who prove themselves with quiet dignity and unshakable resolve. What about you? If you were Ethan, would you have demanded that kiss or walked away with your head held high? Comment below and subscribe for more cinematic stories of hidden strength and justice served.